Hey guys, it's Ansu and today I'm here with a bunch of mini reviews. I thought it would be fun to have a quick mini review for books. So I'm going to talk about 3 books. I'm going to talk about The Demon King by Cinda Chima, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuist. I'll leave the timestamps below. If you're looking for a specific review, you can just go right to that. So let's start with The Demon King by Cinda Chima. So this was actually my first book by Cinda Chima, so I was expecting a lot. It is definitely talked about a lot on Peruse Project. She adores this author, so I wanted to give it a shot and I did. I gave this book a 3.5 stars. This book is about royalties, wizards, and lay people, and it is an interesting story, but let me just get into it. So one day we have Hans Alistair, who is this lay person. He's kind of a thief. He's very poor. He was a thief before. He's trying to feed his mother and sister. So he was a gang member and he actually quit doing that as well so he could actually help out at home. So one day his friend and him, they were on this mountain where they encountered with 3 young wizards. They were using magic in this realm where they were not supposed to. They get into an encounter and Han Alistair ends up taking an amulet that was one of the wizards. Later on we learned that this wizard was actually the High Wizard's son, so he's a very powerful person. And also the magical piece, this amulet thing, is a very powerful magical piece that basically Han Alistair stole, sort of. The High Wizard family is called the Bayards, and they will not stop at anything to get that piece back. On another side, we have Princess Reza, who is the princess heir to this kingdom, queendom, whatever. No, she has returned to court just to be a wife, so she's being courted by a ton of different people, like princes and rich people or whatever from other regions are coming to court her, and she doesn't want that because she was a free bird for a few years before that, and she wanted to be more like her father, who is, I think he was like a business person, sort of. So she was used to riding and hunting and all of those things for a really long time, and when suddenly she has to come back to the court, she's not very happy about it. After a while, these both worlds collide together, so Han Alistair and Reza, the princess heir. Did I tell her name was Reza? Okay, they both actually end up meeting, and it's the story that just goes on from there. Now the thing is, I gave this a 3.5 stars out of 5. I found that there were too many love interests. There's like a love square pentagon or something. Honestly, I don't even know at this point. We have the Queen Reza and Han Alistair sort of have a romance. Reza and her, well, like a soldier person has the romance, like the Bayard kid. They have sort of a romance, and it's just like romance everywhere. Han Alistair has another romance that was his friend's sister, and it's too much. Like, there's so much romance. It gave me the Fallen Kingdoms vibes, and if you didn't like it, I personally didn't love that book just because of the intense amounts of romance in it. It was just too much, and that was one of the main reasons why I did not like that. And I feel like this is very close to that, but it's not as bad as it, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of evil people and dumb people in this book, so just be aware of that. People don't make really good choices. But even so, it is interesting. Like, I'm not going to just bash it completely and say it's the worst thing ever. It is a good book. Another thing with it is that there's a lot of world building. There's a lot of political intrigue. Because of the world building and giving you a lot of the political details, it just takes a lot of time to get to the point. So it is like a 500-page novel, but to get to the point, it just takes so much time. I think the last 200 pages were the parts that I really enjoyed because you actually got more detail, whereas the rest of the book, you had nothing. You were just given all of these details about these characters. Some of them are very spoiled. Some of them are just making stupid decisions in their lives, and they're just being very reckless. And you see only those bits and pieces, which is almost not enough to give a full solid opinion and be like, okay, this is good, I can continue on with it. So just keep all those things in mind before you pick this up, because if you are in a reading slump, you might get into more of a slump. Just keep that in your mind. I don't know what else to say about it. It was a decent book, so I'll give it that. Let's move on to A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This was actually a concept by Siobhan Dode, I think her name was, and she unfortunately ended up passing away, so the story was actually taken up by Patrick Ness and completed. This book has a few pictures in it. It's almost like a story time book. It takes a couple of hours to read. It's not very long. I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. So Monster Calls follows around this little boy who's about 13, and he lives with his mother, and she is very sick. She had cancer and she's going through a ton of treatments to get better. She's in a really bad state. The boy kind of knows it in the back of his head, but he's not acknowledging the fact that his mother is not going to get well. At this point, she's just getting weaker and weaker every single day. She's sleeping most of the time. He's like such a sweet kid. He's doing all the work by himself. He's taking care of himself. He's only 13, so he's not technically supposed to do anything by himself. And his grandmother comes along. That's his mom's mom, and she comes along to essentially help out with things when the mother is getting a little worse with her health. If you have family members or just anyone that you know that has passed with cancer, who has cancer, and who's going through that much pain, you see it, this will hurt you. It will like physically hurt you. If you have those kind of triggers in you, just maybe avoid this book. It is a kind of a horror story. So we have this yew tree that is living outside of this boy's house. And every night at about 12:07 a.m., this tree comes alive and it starts talking to this boy. So he's not afraid of this tree for some reason, but he's afraid of something else way bigger. And the yew tree basically knows that, and this yew tree decides to tell him 3 different stories. They're all horror stories. It's not really scary, but they're horror stories, and the boy's like kind of upset with these stories. The yew tree ends up telling him that I'll tell you these 3 stories, but the 4th story you're going to tell me your truth. And the boy just doesn't know what that truth is, and you're just going to see all these different stories and it'll tie up together in the end. And it's just a heart-wrenching, heartwarming story. It's just a little too much to deal with. I really loved it. It was really well written, and it really does break your heart, so I really did enjoy it. That's all I'm going to say about it, because I feel like I will cry, so I'm going to leave it at that. I think you should really pick that book up. It's really wonderful. It's a really quick read too, so you shouldn't take a lot of time with it, and it's fantastic. Moving on to the final book I'm going to talk about is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and oh my goodness, I know people have hyped this up so much over the last year on BookTube, but I have to say, it is such a cutesy book. Okay, so we follow around the president's son, who kind of hates the Prince of England at this point. His name is Henry. Alex is the president's son, Henry is the Prince of England. Alex kind of hates Henry for some reason, and every single time they see each other, they end up in some kind of a dispute, in an argument, whatever. The first family ends up going to England for the royal wedding, and the cake, which costs like thousands of dollars, ends up toppling because of Alex. And there's a huge scandal behind it. It's because they have a feud with each other, because obviously they want to make sure that there are no political issues that could happen. Alex and Henry are forced to kind of fake a friendship. They end up falling for each other. We learn that Henry is actually gay and Alex is bisexual. There's a lot of political interest, and we're in the year 2020. So if you're reading it this year, it's basically everything about it in this year. We have a world where Trump is not the president. So I think Casey McQuiston is a little smart in that case, but it was like right after Obama's term, this new person is a female president. So there's like a lot of changes and stuff like that. It is very obvious the relationship is going to go public, and the way that people have dealt with the fact that this relationship is public now, and also because there's a re-election for a new president. Will this lady president be the president for the next term as well? That's also there's a huge political interest in that as well. We have insanely brilliant characters with funny characters who are writers and stuff. It's really interesting. It is an adult romance. There is a bit of like sexual stuff in it. So if you're not okay with reading it, don't read it. It is an adult book, so keep that in mind. Also, there's a lot of moments where you just laugh out loud, and that doesn't really happen to me for books that I've read of late. It's just a lot of me just sitting around not really enjoying the book or not laughing or anything at all. So that usually happens, or I end up crying. Like it's never about laughing. This book, you actually laugh out loud. It is actually funny. It's just a quirky writing style. I really enjoyed the book, so I would also recommend that. I'm adding on to the hype for sure, but it is a great book, so I'll leave it at that. I hope that helped you guys to pick up a book. So we have a fantasy, a YA fantasy, a YA horror, and an adult romance with 3 different genres, and I think all of them are really good books in different varieties. I would really recommend them. Pick one of these up. It's definitely going to be worth your time. And yeah, that is it from me. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe down below. I post videos 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!